The Arizona podcast is brought to you by Triumph Protective Coatings. They specialize in concrete polish, epoxy flooring systems, micro top floors and walls, and self leveling underlays. They service all of California and they are an awesome company. They speak Spanish and they do amazing work. Check them out at triumph_coatings on Instagram. And if you use the promo code arrows up, you get 10% off. So check them out. I know the schedule for this pod is Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, but I got a good excuse as to why you didn't get a pod on Thursday. There was nothing on Friday, and it's Saturday. By the time you hear this, you might have two podcasts. It's the weekend. So, this is the thing. We have Wemby, who came to Los Angeles over the weekend on Friday. And I want to go see him versus the Lakers. And I wanted to see him first and then jump on the pod. And that's what we do. That's what I do. Solo pod today. Wemby, bunch of soccer stuff, some NFL stuff, and some non-sports stuff too. So, good pod today. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a good weekend. Here we go. Arizona podcast. I'm going to start with the final thought today. That's what I'm going to do. Kind of little reverse of the pod. We usually do final thought at the end, obviously. Hence the name, final thought of that segment. First thought. This is what we're going to do. First thought. Wembyama is incredible. Absolutely incredible. We got there like 40 minutes before the game and made our way to the seats. And whenever I've never watched a guy, I'd like to show up a little early, see them work, see how they look before they're going up against other people. Because you get a good view of Manchester United just scored. They just tied, by the way. Harry Maguire, shout out to him. But you get a good idea of who the guy is. And as soon as we got there, Wemby's working out. He's shooting up some shots. And he was impressive. He looked huge, like tall, long. He doesn't look as lanky as he does on TV. He looks pretty solid. So it reminded me a lot. I remember when I went to see Giannis before he became Giannis, when he was like still super like skinny and unknown what he was going to be. And Giannis was skinny, but he wasn't like, like Kevin Durant skinny where he looked frail. And that's how Wembyama looked. Wembyama looked a lot like like a baby Giannis. Now, I don't know if he's going to have the same body transformation. I'm not saying that. But I was super surprised and super taken back by the fact that he wasn't like frail, because the way he looks on TV, he just looks like, stick figure, like this super huge, long, cartoonish stick figure. And he's more coordinated. When you see him run, when you see him dribble, he's very coordinated for a huge guy. Kevin Durant-ish, Kevin Durant's super like coordinated too. He is weak. So multiple times, like there was a play where LeBron like boxed him out and kind of just like with his butt kind of pushed him like way out of the way. And it happened several times where dudes were just like pushing him around. So he's going to have to get stronger but in his legs, and the base is going to have to get stronger. But yeah, he is, God, he is so good. He is like a cartoon character almost with how good he is. He ended the game in 5 blocks. 3 of them must have been versus Austin Reeves, who he blocked and sent his stuff packing several times. And there was a play, the first block, very first play of the game. Reeves drives and Wemby, like it looked like he had beat Wemby, and then out of nowhere, Wemby closes the space and blocks him, and he altered pretty much how the Lakers played that first quarter because while he was in the game, they didn't drive, they didn't dare to drive, and it wasn't until the Spurs took him out. The Lakers began to attack the basket, and that's when Lakers grew the lead. But I'm telling you, this guy defensively makes the Spurs a different team. And it's why now the Spurs have only won 11 games, so I'm not going to say Wemby should win Defensive Player of the Year. But the Spurs team, with him on the floor and with him off the floor, is a very different Spurs team. And I think the Spurs are making a mistake in tanking and, playing the route they're going because they need to be trying to win now. Because Wemby is a winner and he's a really good player right now. And in 2 years, 3 years, he's going to be better, but he's worth it. He's worth the hype. He's worth you going to see him when he comes to your town. You need to go see Wembyama in person because he is ridiculous. The passing I think is probably one of the most underrated things because he was dropping dimes left and right. And the thing is, because he has so long arms, like some of the passes he does, like when he bounce passes, are not that great, but just he's so big so he can see over everybody and he just like tosses it above everyone's head. So Wembyama, the hype is real, and you need to go see him. That's the takeaway. Go see Wembyama because the dude's incredible, and he's one of one, and we're going to be talking about Wembyama as the next guy in the NBA for a long, long time, for the years to come, because he is that special. He is that crazy. And yeah, man, I was blown away. I couldn't believe just how good he looked. And I think that's the beauty of when you go see guys up front and you go see them in person, you're able to gauge and appreciate it a little different. Because some guys just stand out. Some guys just are just jumping out at you. And you're like, man, I've never seen this type of thing before. And Wemby was definitely like that. And it was it was incredible. Let's switch gears a little bit here. Because that was the final thought. I wanted to start the pod off with Sergio Ramos. Sergio Ramos is a soccer legend. He is the greatest defender of this generation. Or center back. He is won it all at the team level, both club and internationally. He is as accomplished, as decorated as they come. He is an icon in the Spanish Soccer Federation. You know, he's a legend for the Spanish national team. He is a legend of Real Madrid and El Capitán. And he left the team a few years ago. And once he left, He left like 2021, 2020, something like that. Um, and he was always, his exit was a little strange just because Real Madrid started to do where they were just giving 1 year, and they did that with Modric, did that with Kroos. We'll give you a year, and we'll just kind of evaluate year by year. And they offered him the contract. He said no, and then as the season wound down, Real Madrid was pretty much like, "Well, that's it. Like, we got nothing else for you." And at the end, they came back and he's all right. I'll take it. And they're like, "Yeah, there's no contract. We rescinded that." And then he left. He went to PSG, played with Messi, the whole thing. He comes back to Spain, plays for La Liga, and he plays for Sevilla, which was his boyhood club. And tomorrow, he makes his return for the very first time since he left to El Bernabeu, the place where he grew up, the place where he won everything he had to win at the club level, the place where he became a legend, the place where he became the greatest center back of this generation, and I would argue of all time, but that's maybe for a different podcast with a different person. Because maybe you'd like to hear me argue about that, not necessarily just me giving you my opinion on it. But we saw Ramos, and when I say we, it's us, the Madridistas, saw him. And it's one of those things that he embodied leadership, he embodied toughness, tenacity. He was going to stand up for his teammates. He was going to, if you did something to one of his guys, he was going to get you back on the next one. He was the vocal leader, the heart, just super passionate, super clutch. God, super clutch. There's no moment was big for him. He was always in the position where he had to make a play, and he obviously had a lot of yellows. He kind of tiptoed that line a lot of like crazy and aggressive, and what point is it detrimental to the team? But the thing is, it always helped the team. That obviously that you can argue some red cards weren't necessary, and he should have been on the field and all that, but he. And, we've talked about this with the Draymond thing. Like, there's a moment where you have to accept that this is the type of player this person is. And you can't have all the good stuff of the guy without some of the baggage. And that's just the way it goes. And every player is like that. Obviously some players have more obvious and more detrimental things that you're like, whoa, I don't know if I can carry that baggage, but every guy has that. Cristiano is an amazing player, in my opinion, the greatest player of all time, and his thing is though, like he, wants to be the very best, and if that rubs his teammates the wrong way, so be it. And you can deal with that baggage. Messi likes, he's one of the greatest players of all time, second greatest player of all time. And he wants to, be the best, but he wants it his way. He wants you to do what he wants. And that's why Zlatan had trouble with him. It's why Samuel Eto'o had trouble with him. But it's the baggage, and you're kind of willing to deal with it because it's messy and the production's worth it. And then you take someone like Ronaldinho, who is, we want to use a boxing analogy, pound for pound, the best player, the highest peak was reached by Ronaldinho. He didn't do it for long, but he was incredible. And his baggage was that he just, liked to party too much and drink and wasn't all that interested in showing up to practice on time or sober. And it was baggage that Barcelona, with the team that they had at the time, weren't willing to carry anymore. So every player has baggage. So whenever you think of Ramos, you kind of think of it kind of like a Draymond Green, where yeah, Draymond Green can fly off the handle, and Draymond Green can be a psychopath sometimes. And as we saw earlier this season, choking dudes and doing all this and that. But this is the thing: you don't win the 4 titles without Draymond Green. You just don't. And the Warriors are now on a hot streak, and they're kind of climbing up, and they look really good. And you know why? Because of Draymond Green. Because when he came back from the suspension, he's been really, really good for them. So Ramos falls in that category, and you can be like, oh, well, he was this, he was that. Well, guess what? Real Madrid doesn't win 4 Champions League titles in 5 years without Ramos. So you take all the good stuff with some of the crazy baggage stuff, and that's what it is, and that's with every athlete, with every person in anything. Relationships are like that. You get with somebody, and guess what? There's stuff that you are truly crazy about. That's why you fell in love with them. Their personality, the way they look, their hair. I don't know. The way they make you laugh. They're hilarious. Maybe they're super stable. They have a really good job, and you want stability, and they bring you that, or they're super a good listener and things like that. And then there's stuff that's like absolutely like annoying, and maybe they chew ice really loud, or they chew with their mouth open, or I don't know, they're dirty, or they're super like they're forgetful, or they like procrastinate, or they double book themselves a lot, or I don't know, you whatever. Now, and those stuff you kind of have to take into account. Is it worth it? Do I love this person enough? Do I love this person so much that I'm willing to put up and deal with all the baggage? Because everybody has baggage. And if you don't think you have baggage, then you probably have the biggest baggage of all of us. Because we all have baggage. We all come with stuff that is annoying. All of us do things that can annoy the other person. And if you don't believe me, it's either because you are a single child or you are a psychopath. But if you grew up with siblings, you absolutely know you have high levels of annoyance, of being annoying. So, and that's with athletes, players. So Ramos, club legend, Capitan. Now, why am I talking about Sergio Ramos? I'm talking about Sergio Ramos because he's going back to Real Madrid, and they're going to do a tribute to him. It's probably going to be super emotional and super awesome. And I'm bringing this up because Real Madrid doesn't have the highest. We're not the best at honoring legends, and dudes kind of leave, and it's like cool, but there isn't this like grander, this grand departure. Now, I don't know if there is such a way to do that. I don't know if there is a right way to send someone off, especially someone like Ramos, someone like Iker Casillas, someone like Cristiano, who technically never got his, someone like Marcelo. Guys like that left, not because they wanted to leave, not because they thought they were done, but the club was like, I think we're good. I think we can, you gave us everything you had to give us, and now I think we can find a younger player who can do what you can do. And it's a tough thing, and they're going to do a tribute to him. He spent 16 years with Real Madrid. He was the captain, again, like I said, and he's, forever going to be linked to that. I'm forever going to be a Madridista, and I'm sure once Ramos retires, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he finds himself, working for the team or as an ambassador, doing something for Real Madrid. So, big shout out to Sergio Ramos, El Capitan, and for all the Madridistas. Thank you for everything you did for us. Thank you for all the titles. Thank you for everything. Xabi Alonso. Let's go to Germany. Xabi Alonso is the hottest name in the soccer world in terms of managers. He is the manager currently at Bayer Leverkusen, who is a German team. And he has that team just crushing. They have 61 points. They have won 20. They've played 23 games, won 19, drew 4. They are undefeated. And this is a mark that's only been reached by Bayern before, where you're undefeated after 23 games. And they are 11 points up on Bayern. They beat Bayern on February 10th, 3-0. And they're crushing, and they're probably going to win the league. And it's just been masterful to see Xabi Alonso coach. Now, the reason why he's the hottest name is because unlike Xavi, unlike Lampard, Steven Gerrard, former players that went into managing, he's actually had real success in a real league. And you can see just the influences of Mourinho and Ancelotti and Pep, and it's just like a very unique style that Leverkusen play. Now, where you get the hype now is he signed with Bayern Leverkusen for a few years, and Bayern, had their trouble with managers. They bring in Tuchel, who was from Chelsea, won the Champions League. He's a German. And they thought, okay, here's a guy. He's going to be here for, the next few years. But the low-key part about Bayern is they are low-key super impatient about any type of process, which is surprising for a team that's like a legendary, decorative team. And so they announced that Tuchel's out because Tuchel hasn't been the same. Can't figure. I don't know what it is, but he just has not been good there. And enter Xabi Alonso, who manages in Germany, used to play for Bayern, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to go to Bayern." And then you have Liverpool. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. Jurgen Klopp said, "I'm done. I'm out. I need some rest." And guess what? Xabi Alonso used to be a Liverpool player. So his name is being thrown. He's thrown out. He's going to coach here. He's going to coach there. Oh, he might do this. He might do that. And obviously the big name that looms over all of this, like a big shark, like they always do, is Real Madrid, because they're the biggest club in soccer. They're the biggest sports name in the world. Yes, even bigger than the Dallas Cowboys. They're just the biggest thing. And he used to be a Real Madrid player. So you get where I'm going with this. Ancelotti will probably coach in Real Madrid as long as he wants, as long as he's winning, as long as he's successful. But he's also getting old. And presumably you would think that Xabi Alonso was just looking at that spot and saying, 3-4 years, that can be my job, and I can go there, and that can be me. And in the meantime, he can go wherever and do whatever. But I don't know. But maybe he leaves. Maybe he goes to another place. But he has it okay in Bayern Leverkusen. Now, is he legitimately going to succeed and win the Champions League there? I mean, anything can happen, but, resources are real, and you need resources to compete in soccer, especially at the highest level that Bayern could offer, Liverpool maybe could offer, Family Group. They don't put anything in the Red Sox, but they do. They put money into Liverpool. But then you get, you're under a different kind of pressure, because now you're, one of the things that has been awesome to see with Bayern Leverkusen is the development of these guys that he's had under him. The way he's allowed them to grow and kind of come into their own in the system. And that typically doesn't happen quickly or at all in the biggest clubs, because you're dealing with guys that are making a lot more money, who are more established, who have agents and managers and all these type of things that they need to get their playing time. They need this, they need that. I'm accustomed to playing like this, so this is my style. I've never really tried that, and And once you try changing these established dudes' like way of playing, they kind of don't take well to that, especially because if you're someone like Thomas Mueller, for example, who's won everything there is to win at the club level internationally as well, and Xabi Alonso wants you to do this now instead of that, or he says, "Hey, you're kind of getting too long in the tooth, so we're kind of cut your minutes here." And you're like, "Wait, I'm a legend here. I won all this. Like, what are you doing now?" Xabi Alonso might be the right guy to be able to tell someone like that, "Hey, it's time for you to take a back seat." Kind of like Xavi, he was the one that was able to tell a lot of the old heads at Barcelona, like, "Dude, it's time to go." And Xavi could do it because he had won everything, had been there. And maybe Xavi is able to do that because his resume is as good as anyone's at Bayern. But it's going to be an interesting decision because if the reports are real that he's kind of eyeing the Real Madrid job, I guess you do a linear move to Bayern and you kind of hold it off there, and you kind of conquer the German league and you kind of do that whole thing, try to bring Bayern a Champions League title. But it's going to be very interesting because obviously they're going to get more aggressive. Bayern is like struggling. They did my guy Nagelsmann super dirty. And Nagelsmann, came out this week and was like, "Yeah, they didn't give me the time. They told me they were going to give me time, and it takes time, and they didn't give me the time." And yeah, look, it's easy to pencil in every year and every season and say, "Well, Man City's going to win the Champions League, and Real Madrid's going to win the Champions League, and Bayern, and just throughout the big names." But it's really, really hard, and it's why it's not talked about enough. Just how impressive that run of Real Madrid, the 4 and 5, because it is so hard. It is so hard to win one, let alone rattle off 4 in 5 years. And that kind of stuff is incredible and unprecedented. And it takes time. And I think if you're at this big club and you kind of are wanting stability and you're wanting to win, you need to understand that it's going to take some time. It's going to take a while. Look how long it took Pep to win a Champions League title since the Barcelona one. It took him a long time. He had really good teams. But, the credit goes to Man City where they were willing to be patient with him. I think any other club would have fired Pep and said, "Well, we brought you here to win the Champions League. You haven't produced it." And to their credit, they stuck with him, and they said, "No, we're gonna ride this out, and he's our guy." And that's what's happened. And they've seen the benefit of it because now he's won, and kind of that whole pressure's off of them. And so you kind of get the sense that whatever Xavi Alonso chooses is going to be a huge deal for everybody around, because if he goes to England, you kind of Liverpool kind of just get shot back up as a still contender, because depending on who they replace Klopp with, that's you figure that can be a significant drop off. And even if Xavi comes in, you're not expecting him to be from the very get-go, Klopp. You're not expecting that. It's not fair to Xavi to expect that and have that expectation. But he's the hottest name in the manager world. So if you follow soccer at all and you start hearing these rumors, this is why. Another soccer thing. There was an uneventful Champions League week, 2 weeks. The games were not that great. Like, this week, Dortmund 1-1 versus PSV. Inter beat Atletico. Porto, late winner, beat Arsenal. Napoli, Barcelona tied 1-1. One of the things that's funny, and I saw it in the Porto Arsenal game, and that game was whatever, but because there was a late winner, that the game ended like last minute goal type of thing from Porto. People are like, "Oh, what a game! God, what a game!" And I think we are conditioned to think that just because a game was close or a game was like ended in a like late score, we automatically think, "What a good game." And that, we kind of have to take into account everything, the totality of the game. Because just because you had a good moment, just because you had a good moment at the end, doesn't make it that the whole game was good. And, it happens with fights too. There's a knockdown. It's like, oh, what a good fight. Like, was it? Or you just see somebody get knocked out and you thought it was a good moment. I think we should be better at that. Better at this judging of things, and not just kind of get into this idea of, it was good. It was like, it was a good moment. It was a good goal. It was a good, shocking that Arsenal let that happen. But it was a good moment. I don't know if that classifies that game to be good after that, but uneventful. Mbappe is set to sign with Real Madrid. You've heard me say this before. But supposedly this is real. This is almost like they're at the goal. They're at the 1 yard line, and they're just ironing out the little details. But also we've seen stops at the 1 yard line too. So he wants to be presented, according to other reports. He wants to be presented before the Euros, and the Euros start June 14th. The Champions League final, assuming that either PSG or Real Madrid or both make it all the way final, is June 1st. So it's like a 2-week period from that time. The French league ends May 18th, and La Liga ends May 26th. Now, I'm giving you these dates because if Real Madrid, say this gets done, and say Real Madrid and Mbappe are able to come to an agreement and he's set to sign, when do you do that presentation? If he wants it before the Euros, and say Real Madrid is still in the Champions League or Mbappe, do you do that in the middle of that? I don't think either party does that. And if you're, say, Mbappe, because I think, if Real Madrid wins the Champions League and, they got to present Mbappe June 4th, no big deal. But say you're Mbappe. You take PSG all the way to the title, and they win. They win the Champions League. Do you then, tell France, hey, detour here, I'm going to go to Spain, get presented, and then show up for training at the Euros? So I know he wants that ideally, but I think that would require both teams to not be in Champions League contention. So something to look out for, something to see, because the timeline you'd kind of be pushing the timeline. Now it helps that, the Euros are obviously in Europe, Germany this year. So it could happen. It just would seem very rushed. And you would think something like that, the presentation of Mbappe, one of the biggest stars in the world, a rumor that had been swirling around for years now, it's finally come to fruition. You would think that you would want a gigantic thing. But what you would see here is not so much that. You would kind of see something a little different. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But that's soccer. That's where we're at. Let's do some NFL. The 49er loss in the Super Bowl is getting worse. I haven't watched any, sound effects stuff, any of the sounds of the game. I haven't seen the game. I bypass all of it. I can't deal with it. Not strong enough. Can't do it. Won't do it. But I saw this thing on Twitter, they were saying that the 49ers broke. What the 49ers did on Super Bowl Sunday was impossible. They led twice in the fourth quarter, once in overtime, and it's like no team had ever lost that way. So the loss is historical, and I'm like, thank you. I didn't need you to tell me how awful and colossal that loss is, but thanks. So now we have a historical precedent as to how bad that loss was and how historical that was. So there's that. Something to make me feel better. The Eagles have been in shambles ever since they lost to the Niners, though. Remember the Eagles? They were 10-1 at one point, and they just rattled off a bunch of losses after that. I think they ended like 1-5 at the end. But it came out this week, the Big Dom, remember Big Dom, the guy that got in Greenlaw's face in the Niner game? They got both kicked out. It turned out to be the head security for the Eagles, and just some big old Italian dude, pretty much. So Big Dom they were saying that his departure from the team, or his suspension, him not being able to be on the field, was a huge loss because he was the guy that controlled Sirianni. And after he left, then you had a lot of just fights between Sirianni, and Sirianni would fight with the players, with the coaches, and there was nobody there to stop him. There was nobody there to be there to separate them and bring peace. And that made me be like, whoa, dude, are you serious? You need a head of security to be on the field because he controlled and was the kind of the guy that put everybody on just on good terms. And that made me be like, I think the Eagles made a mistake not firing Sirianni. But so that was a weird story. And then A.J. Brown comes out, and he's complaining about the Philly fans, how they're super demanding and this, that, and the other. And that was that part is annoying because it's one thing to be I'll read you. This is what he says. A.J. Brown, now, I don't think this is a direct quote. This is more like the summary. It says, Philly media is lame. It's literally something every day. Then the fans, we believe the BS. They really should start raising the prices of microphones and cameras because you people will say anything for views. I see why nobody likes us because we don't even like us. So he says that this is a thing. If you're going to be all about the fans and you want fans that are super passionate, well, guess what? Super passionate fans are crazy fans. And you can't have one without the other, kind of like my rant in the beginning about how, the baggage stuff. You can't have one without the other. You can't say, oh, man, I want someone that's super passionate. Well, you know what somebody that's super passionate does? They're super demanding as well. And someone that's super passionate is, demands a lot. So it's funny, when people say that, oh, man, I want to date somebody that's passionate. Do you really, though? Do you really? Or passionate about what? Because what if your passion is nature and their passion is sports? You're going to hate that because that person's going to want to be watching sports all the time. And this is what it is. Passionate people are demanding people. They demand a lot. They expect a lot. And A.J. Brown is learning that. So that made me feel better. Not really, actually, but it is what it is. And that's it. That's the pod. So I wanted to end because I do have a final thought. See, I came prepared. I changed my final thought to the first thought. Here's my final thought. With February ending and coming to a close next week, this is where I was reading this thing that was saying, it was on Forbes, and it was saying that 22% of people, only 22% of the people who make goals keep their goals in the second month. And this is where it kind of falls apart. And if you've had that in, February, kind of you slow down on the go, guess what? Jump on it. Jump back on the bike, whatever the analogy is, the horse, whatever. Get back on it. Don't quit. You had a bad month, so what? Doesn't mean you have to have bad 10 months. And we have to be okay or make normal this idea of getting back on the horse, getting back on it. So you ate a bunch of crap for 2 weeks. All right. Well, guess what? Don't eat a bunch of crap starting today, and we get it going. We start it all over again. So you didn't go to the gym for a week. You didn't work out for 2 weeks. Well, guess what? You can work out today and restart that same habit. You didn't read. You were reading every day, and then you stopped reading. Well, guess what? Pick up your book, pick up whatever, your Bible, whatever. Whatever it is that your goal was, you were saving money, and all of a sudden you splurge on whatever, and your savings are down again. Guess what? We'll start again. You're going to get paid again, right? So start again. Put some money aside again. And this is this trial and error, and eventually we're going to get to where we need to get to. So get back on it. You're 22%. Keep going. You're doing great. And if you're part of the 78%, get back on it. You're still good. You're still fine. Don't let just the bad 2 weeks ruin the entire year. So it's a final thought. So that's the podcast. I'll have another podcast for you tomorrow with Harry about baseball. So have that one. And I'll be recording with David. We couldn't link up on Wednesday, but tomorrow, in the flesh, I'm recording 2 pods tomorrow. In the flesh with David. That one gets released Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that one on Tuesday. And tomorrow's with Harry on baseball. So, a lot of good stuff. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you later. That's the pod. We are brought to you by, as always, Triumph Protective Coatings. They specialize in concrete polish, epoxy flooring systems, micro top floors and walls, and self-leveling underlays. They service California, and they speak Spanish. You can follow them, Triumph_coatings on Instagram, and you get a 10% off if you use the promo code ArrowsUp. You can also reach them on Gmail, triumphprotectivecoatings@gmail.com. That's the pod. Thank you to Angel for the music. Thank you to Wemby for being awesome. Thank you to you for listening. I will talk to you tomorrow with Harry, baseball. So you can follow us, Arrows Up Podcast, anywhere you get your pods. Subscribe, 5 stars, you know the deal. And Instagram, Arrows Up. On Instagram, you can follow us there. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Let's go Lakers.